Thanks.
Thanks for that, Neil. And like you said, you have been a user since I think it was April of 2015, so from back when we were just 7 folks in an Austin food park. Thank you. So as Alex said, I want to talk a little bit about what we have planned for this year. But before we dive into that, I want to let you know kind of how we think about product and how we design it. So as Stan and Alex said, our goal is always impact. And in order to achieve that, we really need that high adoption, quick time to value, and an enjoyable experience for you. And we can only achieve that by listening to you. So it really starts by getting out and talking with you and really understanding what your problems are. When we first started, as Stan said, we spoke with a little over 300 sourcing professionals before we began designing anything, and definitely before we built anything. And our goal there was just to understand exactly what it was we needed to build for you. And this is a tradition we've really tried to keep alive. Every product manager and designer at Scout tracks and reports on how many customers they're meeting with each week to make sure they're getting out of the building and really understanding your needs. Without that basic understanding, we really believe we can't build anything that works. And I mean, part of that is we have a fantastic team of designers and engineers, but when we let them sit in a room all day, they come up with brilliant solutions to problems that just don't really exist. Once we understand, or once we think we understand what we need to work on, we put together a prototype. Sometimes it's a really quick, simple sketch. Sometimes we'll build a semi-functional version of it, and then we get it out in front of you once we're happy with it, and you very quickly tell us how terribly wrong we were in all of our assumptions. And this is a process we go through over and over, whittling it down with your feedback until we finally understand what we're supposed to be building. Only about 5 to 10% of what we're working on makes it through that process. The rest of it, you basically convince us to throw out. And as a result of that, we're able to make sure that we're only building and releasing what you actually need. And so why do we throw out so much of this? Like I said, the goal is impact. And if we went out and built every single thing that we came up with, all of these ideas, then you'd very quickly have a bloated system that just didn't work for anyone. So as a result of spending all this time with you, we're able to make sure that every line of code really helps you increase your impact. And we're only able to do this because of the time you're willing to spend with us. So thank you for taking the time to help us build Scout. Scout Pipeline is a direct result of all the time we spent with Gotham and Amar at Zebra, Greg at VSP, Larry at Intuit, and many others of you. Our team system is a direct result of spending time with Chris and Naresh at Salesforce. Milestone templates came from Aaron and Candace at Anadarko. And the list really goes on, and I could spend all day up here thanking you. But Alex wanted me to talk about what's next. So let's have a quick sneak peek at what we're actually rolling out this year. First off, we mentioned the sourcing impact report. We know that you're a whole lot more than just savings, and your impact extends far beyond that. But we know that savings needs to live right at the top of the report. So we want to help you track your identified savings, all of your planned and active projects, all of your realized savings for the year, and of course, track it to a savings goal. And we want to make sure that you're able to track it over time so you can track that budget impact along with your finance team. Here we can see we have a $100 million savings goal. We had some carryover savings from last year. Looks like we have realized savings that'll get us about halfway there, and we have enough planned projects in the pipeline to get us most of the way there, but thankfully, it's not even March. We have time to react, and we can actually capture all the savings we need. But we know that each of you tracks savings very differently. We know that finance blesses savings differently at every organization, so we want to make sure we build an enhanced savings tracker for you so that you can track all of the savings you need, and whether it's recognized or unrecognized. You'll be able to configure it to include all of the savings types you have and what finance says about it. And then for each project, you'll be able to add as many savings elements as you need, say whether they're one-time or calculated savings, when you should get credit for them, and of course the amount. And we know that once you've loaded all of this data into Scout, you need to be able to pull that data right back out. And we've also heard a lot about our current reporting tool. So we're going to be, over the next few weeks, releasing a brand new reporting tool to allow you to pull all of this data right back out. And our whole goal here is to make sure that you can access all of your critical data however you want. You'll be able to filter by any of the fields you've added in here, save all your reports so you can get back to it. And of course, if you do need to export any of this and drop it in your own BI tool for your own additional visualizations, you'll be able to do all of that as well. And like Alex said, we haven't forgotten our roots as an RFP tool. We know that bid optimization and just managing the negotiation process is something that's very important to you. We've heard a lot about that. So throughout the year, we're going to be working on an updated optimization kind of comparison tool that will allow you to very quickly take your large bids you run in Scout, run some quick analysis, get your SKU coverage numbers, spend coverage, of course, identify and exclude some outliers, and then really quickly generate some feedback to send to your suppliers. That way, as you have them update their bids, instead of just saying, come back and sharpen your pencils, you can give them really pointed feedback and tell them exactly what they need to work on to improve that bid and win that business. And with this one, thank you to Roger from TPG and Bob from Biogen for all the time you've spent with us and giving us great suggestions here. And then, as Alex mentioned, and as we all know, you guys are a whole lot more than just savings. You have impact far beyond that in the organization, something you don't often get credit for, but we've slowly come to understand the importance of supplier performance management. Something that came up at our last customer executive board was we had a fantastic group of you in a room, and we were trying to understand what other impact you really had, and business reviews kept coming up. So we asked, how many of you run business reviews, whether it's quarterly or annually? And everyone raised their hand. And here, how many of you have gone through a QBR cycle with a supplier? Fantastic. And then we asked, how many of you are happy with how many you're running or feel like you're covering enough suppliers? And very quickly, all the hands dropped, and nobody was quite happy with it. So we realized there was a problem here that we needed to work on. And so instead of having me talk all about it, I'm going to bring up Mark Zafra. He's the head of global strategic sourcing from Twitter. And he's incredibly passionate about this topic. His eyes light up more than anyone else I know when the topic of judging suppliers comes up. So thanks for joining us, Mark.
Absolutely.
So we've spoken a lot about performance reviews and the importance of them. Why are they so important to you and to Twitter?
So for Twitter, we're fairly early on our strategic supplier management cycle, but it makes such a huge impact for the business to fix problems that we have and really transform suppliers. And it's not a skill set the business typically has, so it's an area of real value that strategic sourcing can bring to the company.
Fantastic. And with that impact, can you talk about any great turnaround stories you've had where you kind of saved a supplier relationship or anything like that?
So at a previous company, a Fortune 10 company, we did supplier surveys. And we ranked our suppliers. And we had one supplier, major tech firm. It was number 20 out of 20. So our absolute worst performing supplier. We went on an 18th-month supplier improvement plan, doing QBRs, surveys, and we eventually got them up to number 4 out of 20. So this supplier did that through really frequent surveys, really executive engagement, and with that, we transformed the relationship. We got on their customer advisory boards. We got all sorts of investments. We got them to really focus on us and give disproportionate attention that we never would have gotten had we not done the QBRs and the surveys. So it really just transformed the business, and the business started engaging us every time they had a problem supplier, so we could fix them instead of getting rid of them. And the amount of efficiency that we gained was transformative.
Excellent. So what's preventing you from running more of these or extending the program out to more suppliers?
Bandwidth. I mean, we do at best 1 to 3 suppliers per category. So if we had a tool to make it more efficient and faster, we would do more. And there's so much value in fixing supplier relationships. It really will help our bandwidth as a sourcing team to not do constant RFPs if we can fix the suppliers that are in there and make the incumbents even better.
So what are you most excited about having a performance review platform for?
I think that with an effective tool, we can perhaps double the number of QBRs that we do in a year, and I think that will provide huge value to the business. Really true dollar savings in efficiency and value.
Excellent. So we won't bore you with a giant pile of prototypes, but do you want to go ahead and take a look at what the engineers have put together?
Awesome.
Fantastic. So this is what we're actually releasing today. This is incredibly exciting. Here we have a supplier profile, Alpha Cloud software. We can really quickly see segmentation, risk profile, Of course, you can add in any of the fields you want to track as an organization, whether it's just looking at whether the supplier has access to employee data, customer data, any of your certifications, to track everything about the supplier. And then today we've added in a performance review tab. So this is where you're able to build out that scorecard and really look at the historical performance of your supplier. And here we can see supplier started dipping a couple quarters ago, but it looks like we were able to turn it around, probably had some a great improvement plan we put together with them. And our goal here is just to standardize your sourcing scorecard so that you can make sure it's consistent both for a single supplier historically and then also just across your entire supply base. And almost more important than the actual performance review and the scorecard are the action items that come out of it. Far too often we hear that you build these out, they're put in a beautiful PowerPoint, and then they disappear into an inbox somewhere. And I know as a supplier, we've probably been guilty of this at least a time or two, hopefully not with you. And so now you can actually build out your performance plan with your supplier live as you're going through your review, and then maintain accountability together. And Dennis, thank you for assigning this one to me. It'll be great. And just providing that transparency to both your stakeholders and your suppliers. And our goal with this is just to make it even easier than running an RFI and Scout.
The efficiency of tracking the action items in one central place and the transparency is going to make a huge impact.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Cheers.
Look forward to getting you in it and getting more feedback. So as we mentioned, this is live today, and if you want a more in-depth demo of it, we'll be upstairs at the success bar. You can grab anyone from the product team or anyone from the customer success team, and we're happy to dive into a lot more detail to really walk you through how this works. So now that we have supplier performance tracking, let's go ahead and add that to our sourcing impact report. Let's make sure that we can review our performance trends across the supply base. Let's set goals with our team to make sure we're hitting those numbers, make sure we can actually expand it out to the right number of suppliers. Let's really quickly look at who our worst performing suppliers are. Do we need to bid out their business on Scout right now? And then, of course, let's just look at our tier 1 suppliers. How are they doing overall? Are they falling where we expect them to fall? And who do we really need to dig into and look at? Once we roll out, or now that we've rolled this out, our goal is to move on to supplier onboarding and registration. We know that far too often, your stakeholders view sourcing as a roadblock when it comes to getting your suppliers up and running. They just want their freshly selected supplier up and running as quickly as possible, but you want to make sure you're actually managing risk and understanding what you're letting in to your business. So we want to make sure we can help you streamline this process and provide full transparency to both your stakeholders as they're waiting for that supplier to get up and running, and also your supplier as they're waiting their way through the process. And one of the other critical things we often hear is that you run your first InfoSec review, and you're supposed to do it every year, but you never get back around to it. Suppliers fall through the cracks. We know every now and then we do. And we want to make sure that you can schedule out next year's review or the year after that and lay out the full pipeline of what's going on. Regardless of whether it's an InfoSec review or an actual ethics audit, whatever it is, you'll have the full control to build this out for you. And as a supplier, I'm most excited about this. I know I always dread filling out your InfoSec forms, not because I'm worried we don't have the right answers or that we can't get through it, but just because of the sheer amount of time it will take me to get through it. So I can't wait to get this in your hands so we can start responding to your InfoSec reviews in Scout. And we know that as we're capturing more and more of your supplier data, we will need to integrate with your ERPs and your vendor masters, so we will be working towards that through the year as well. So now let's get back to the sourcing impact report. This is where we're going. Our whole goal here is to bring all of your data to life, bring your impact to life, get it in front of your executives. And we don't want to hide any of this data behind just pretty charts. We want to make sure that you can dive right into any of the data. So here we can see we have a few projects that need attention. A couple of these are really high-value projects. We can dive right into the underlying data, see exactly who we need to go reach out to. Here it looks like we've got Ryan Barrett owns a couple of these large projects. We can actually have some action on it. And one of the issues with a lot of dashboards like this historically has been lack of adoption of the tools that actually feed them data. We know Gartner places e-sourcing adoption right around 10%. And at Scout, we really break the mold. Our last survey said that most teams have well over 80% adoption of Scout, and so you can actually trust the data that's going into this. And that's our whole goal here. Like I said, we don't want to hide anything. We want you to be able to dive right in and see everything. So as we said, we have a really big year ahead of us, and we're really excited and honored to have you on the journey here. And if any of these updates are particularly exciting or interesting to you, please feel free to grab me at any point, or anyone from the product team, anyone from the executive team, and we'll be upstairs. And also, feel free to reach out to me at any time if you want more details on any of this, or if you want to participate in any of our future research. It's just chris@scoutrfp.com, really easy to get to.